A story of escape. Nathaniel Castro and Noeda Castro fled their country to give their children a better life.
Porque estaba huyendo del comunismo. El comunismo que acabó con Cuba.
My grandparents left Cuba September 4th, 1962. Not only is this a story of hope, but it's my family's story of hope.
Que los comunistas se apoderaron del poder. Y no había libertad de expresión, no había libertad de nada.
His eldest son, only 4 at the time, could only remember the anxiety of it all.
But I know whatever was going on, that Dad and Mom were very anxious about the whole thing. I'm very, very nervous about the whole thing. I mean, if you can imagine leaving something that was at that time comfortable for you, all your family, all your friends, your home, your possessions, and then all of a sudden having to give that up and going somewhere where they didn't really know the language.
Before they could leave, the government came to their home and did an audit of everything in it. The government said if anything was missing, they would not be able to leave. When they left, they were only able to take with them the clothes on their backs.
I mean, things would be so different if Dad and Mom had not left Cuba. And we'd be living under a communist government. We wouldn't be doing what we wanted to do. We would have had to done what the government wanted us to do.
He says the situation in Cuba only got worse.
It went from a bad system, maybe a corrupt system, to a terrible system, not only corrupt, but evil, an evil system, a bad system.
My grandparents could see what was going to happen.
Fidel took over based on lies that he was going to, make everything just and fair, and everyone was going to be able to read and write and have excellent healthcare system. The problem with that is there's no such thing as utopia. There's no communist government that's fair.
My grandpa worked as an accounting professor and as a chemist, and my grandma was a school teacher.
They didn't start in this country at that same level, but they got there and probably beyond in this country, because here you have the opportunity. In Cuba, you don't have the opportunity. It's whatever the government tells you got to do.
But that happened after they left. The Castro family first arrived in Miami, Florida, where previously immigrated relatives lived. The refugee center in Miami connected them with Southern Baptist Mission Board and sent a note to all churches asking if any were interested in adopting a Cuban family. From there, they had the decision to choose between living in Kansas City, Kansas, or Denver, Colorado. And so, Southern Baptist Church in Kansas City adopted them, providing housing, food, and jobs.
I'd been 9 years old. But the church had been actually ecstatic about them coming. And, of course, your uncles, Othoniel and Miguel, were just little kids then, I think 2 and 4. And, we all met them at the airport.
My grandparents became the first Cubans in Kansas City.
The funny thing is, we all thought that because they spoke Spanish, we thought they would be like Mexican people. So we stocked it up with groceries like rice and tortillas and stuff for tacos and stuff. They didn't know what that was for, but it was a good time.
The Reeves family was a big part of welcoming them, and to this day, they still have a strong connection.
My mom spent day after day going to your grandma's house and working with her on her English and got her to where they could communicate, and it was a big deal. And your grandpa, he learned a lot by going to work at Milgram's, and they basically taught him what he knew, and then he went to TWA. And
2 years later, in 1964, my grandma's sister immigrated to the United States.
Oh, I was living with your grandparents, and I started working in the bank, and I worked nights, and your abuelo will go and pick me up from work. And then in the daytime, I babysit Otico and Michael.
My grandparents and great aunt helped bring other Cubans over and supported the ones who stayed.
We have relatives in Cuba that couldn't get the medicines, that can't get the medicines that they need. So that discrepancy is part of communism, except when they're selling it to you, it's a beautiful thing, it's fair.
My mother, Noeda Cunert, the youngest of the Castros, was born in 1969, 7 years after their immigration. She is forever grateful to her parents for giving her the freedom of living in the United States.
I just realized how blessed I am and how proud of my parents are, because it was a really hard decision for them to leave. Like they were leaving behind their careers. My parents were professionals in Cuba. They were leaving behind the family that they really loved.
My grandpa took her to Cuba when she was 10 years old to meet her family and see how they lived.
My grandfather lived in a house where the roof was like made of thatched palm tree leaves, and the door was just like a blanket. And so when you walked in, I mean, it was tile floor, but there was no like real ceiling. It was just like a light bulb hanging from wires.
My grandparents lived in their first house that the church had helped with for a few years, but eventually worked enough to buy their first house that they lived in for 8 years. This is the second one where they lived 46 years in. The Castro children have paved their careers from the opportunity their parents gave them.
It used to be called University of Missouri at Rolla. Now it's called Missouri S&T, Science and Technology, and became an engineer and started working for Hallmark Cards when I graduated.
Her eldest brother became a neurologist and her youngest brother a dentist. My grandparents' story will continue in my family for generations, through me, through my sister.
From an early age, I had lots of conversations with my mom and my grandparents about what it was they came from in Cuba and what it was like for them when they came here. I came to see them as very brave and sort of visionaries for being able to see what the climate was becoming in Cuba at that time, because it was just the beginning of the revolution.
Callie addressed how when political conversations arise, communism seems to be appealing for people.
And I think it's valuable to have the understanding that I grew up with of what the real life consequences are, of living in a society like that, and what some of the dangers are in terms of healthcare, in terms of just the realities of poverty and food insecurity, and the fact that we are so privileged in this country.
Reporting in Kansas City, Missouri, Alexis Cunert.